Hello and welcome to the How Could You Forget podcast. This is a podcast where your hosts, Gurdon, Camp, and Lexi talk about something that might have been too good for you to forget, or maybe you've never heard of. Welcome back, if you're coming back. Welcome, if you've never listened to us before. If you have never listened to us before, you're in for a treat because this episode is going to be rather serious in nature, and most of the things we talk about on this podcast are not serious in nature or as serious as today's topic. So just wanted to give that heads up before you dive in there. This episode, much like our last episode, is going to drop during Pride Month. So there are a lot of topics that we could discuss during Pride Month. We just did our episode last time on the gay islands. That was a pretty cool episode. And I knew that I wanted to host an episode that was covering something related to Pride Month, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to cover because there are so many great topics and things that you could talk about during this month. There are amazing episodes of other podcasts, other videos that already cover subjects like Stonewall, Marsha P. Johnson, rest in eternal peace, Queen, the fight for gay rights in America, intersectionality of queerness, evolution of pride, rainbow capitalism, blah, 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 blah. I mean, the list could go on. So there was really a big pool of things to pick from. Ultimately, I chose today's topic because I wanted to do something that was more of an overview than a deep dive into anything. I'm not an expert on any of these topics that I mentioned, or even the topic I'm going to mention today. And I do not want to take away from the voices of those who are still going through those times, who have been through those quote unquote unprecedented times. So wanted to make that pretty clear. And B, I wanted to touch on something that I felt was particularly relevant to the culture shifts happening in America and the progress or maybe lack thereof that's going on right now. So the argument could be made that any topic surrounding queer rights and the intersectionality of queerness as a whole is very topical, and I completely agree with that. And I just wanted to shed some light on something that I personally didn't know much about before I looked into it for this episode, and I was particularly touched by it. So before I dive into some of the information, I do want to give a warning that this episode will be mostly not safe for work. There will be no graphic imagery or descriptions, similar to our previous episodes where we have covered some not safe for work sort of topics. But if you are listening to this episode in public, or if you find this content to be upsetting, we will be discussing homophobia. We will be discussing some pretty heavy stuff. I do have a fun little game at the end that will be more lighthearted. But I apologize if that's not your jam, and I highly, highly encourage you to go listen to the Gay Islands episode that we did before this one. Today, I'm going to be talking about art during the AIDS crisis. A lot of people will call this the AIDS epidemic. I saw the AIDS crisis. I like calling it the AIDS crisis because I think that that really does encapsulate what was going on at the time. So when I say that, know that I mean the time period from the beginning of when AIDS was identified up until really current day as it's still going on. Before I jump into a lot of talking, I wanted to ask you, of course, Camp and Gurdon, obviously you probably know what AIDS is, but do you know anything specifically about any of the art or the activism during the AIDS crisis?
Not super specifically, to be honest. Like, I know very roughly, like not in terms of actual people or individual art pieces. There was, spoiler alert, I did know a little bit about the topic that we're talking about today going into it, and I talked about it a bit with Lexi. So yeah, exactly. But there is the one art piece, which I know you're going to touch on in a little bit, that I had already known about.
Oh yeah,
that was
we
really
did. Because you asked me, you're like, "Hey, did you see it from this?" And I'm like,
"Well, I mean, I was asked, I was going to be like, do you care if I guess? Because I don't want to spoil it." And then she was like, "No, it's fine." So then I did.
Yeah.
No, but I do know about that. I do know about something we're going to be talking about a little bit later today.
Okay.
But yeah, I do know that specific thing, and I have a general kind of idea of what exactly went down during the AIDS crisis back in the 80s, and honestly still ongoing today. Like,
yeah,
the most that I know was that just a personal anecdote, that when I was younger, my mom introduced me to Queen, the artist. Not the artist, but the band.
Okay.
And when I was
Mr.
like,
Mercury.
whoa, yeah, Freddie, I was like, whoa, Queen is so cool. They make such good music. And my mom, being a music head and a fan of Queen, was talking to me basically like, oh, well, like the lead singer was this guy named Freddie Mercury. And I was like, oh, whoa, he's so cool. What's he up to these days? And essentially my mom had to explain to like an 11-year-old the concept of AIDS and the art and how horrible it was, and how such a generational talent such as Freddie Mercury was taken away just because of this horrible disease. And so that's kind of the really brunt point of what I know about it, is that like in the face of this, there were all of these artists coming out and they tried their best and they made all of this amazing art. Again, I remember hearing about Keith Harington. I don't know if you'll mention him or not, but Keith Harington and Freddie Mercury were two of the main.
Herring, not Harrington.
Oh, okay, my bad. But
you're good. You're good.
Yeah, actually, I'm surprised I hadn't thought of Freddie Mercury as well, because I know about Freddie Mercury's like backstory a little bit.
Interesting.
So
okay.
there's another one that I know.
There you go.
All right, cool. Spoiler alert and not spoiler alert. We will be talking about Keith Haring. We will not be talking about Freddie Mercury. Only reason why we're not talking about Freddie Mercury is because there's so many resources, so many great things out there about Freddie Mercury, which is not to say that there's not great stuff about the artist that I'm going to cover today. But I feel like, as you guys mentioned, Freddie Mercury is a pretty well-known case of someone who passed due to complications of AIDS. And so I didn't want to just be like, hey, here's one of like the largest examples that people know, just because there's a lot of other great sources about him, and he was a fabulous person. But of course, there will be so many more people that were affected by the AIDS crisis that I will not be bringing up today, artists and non-artists alike. So, of course, encourage people to do their own research. And I just want to say, I think I cover about 4 artists. That is by no means even a comprehensive overview of all of the lives that were touched during this crisis. So, but I'm glad that you guys mentioned that, because Freddie Mercury is one that comes up a lot, and we will talk a couple, just a slight bit about some other famous examples of people. Before I do dive into that too, I want to list, I couldn't include all of it, but there is something called the Rainbow Honor Walk, which is a similar sort of thing to like the Walk of Fame with the stars and stuff like that. But obviously this is meant to be for queer individuals. So I cannot remember how many individuals specifically there are, but if you just look up the Rainbow Honor Walk that is installed in San Francisco, because we're all just dudes from San Francisco, as you know.
It all comes back.
It all comes back to San Francisco. I encourage you to take a look at that, because it has some, of course, huge names, and then other people that I'm like, oh wow, I had never heard of this person, but wow, what a cool person, and just gave me a lot of good information that I didn't already know. So, fun little tidbit there. I'm about to get into some of the serious and the sads. Do we have any funnies before I get into that information?
I feel like we got a couple funnies in already. I feel like we are good, unless Gurren has anything to jump in with.
I feel like if you've made it this far and are like, all right, either get to the sad, depressing, or make some jokes, I think you're basically prepped.
Okay. I mean, yeah, you're probably right. Okay. I will say there'll be a couple of spots, so I'm hopeful for that there will be a couple of spots we can get some funnies in that won't feel, bad at anybody else's expense. So before I jump into the stuff about the artists themselves, I won't be able to cover every major point during the AIDS crisis in general, but I did want to provide a backstory, and I will be going over a little bit of a timeline. So anybody who's starting at square one, there is a fantastic timeline on hiv.gov. It's called the timeline of HIV and AIDS that gives a fantastic summary year by year, starting at 1981, going to present day, that will give you perspective on how the AIDS crisis was developing. Very cool source. I will link it. I'm going to go through it here pretty soon. I highly recommend you reading through that in your own time when you have a moment to kind of scroll through. But I'll be going over just kind of some of the high points and some of the things that I found particularly interesting, or it maybe even relates to some of the artists that we're going to be talking about, or just art in general. First of all, for definitions, AIDS stands for Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome, and it is the late stage of HIV infection, which HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. And according to HIV.gov, HIV is a virus that attacks cells that help the body fight infection, which is where the immunodeficiency part comes from, making a person more vulnerable to other infections and diseases. It is spread by contact with certain bodily fluids of a person with HIV, most commonly during unprotected sexual acts, or through sharing injection drug equipment. So, that is the official definition according to hiv.gov. I have the first point, obviously, being on June 5th, 1981, was the first reporting of what would become AIDS. And it was actually called, and I have the abbreviations here, so I need to actually read them. It was described as pneumocystis carinii pneumonia, which they called PCP. And then they also called it Kaposi's, I hope I'm saying that right, sarcoma.
I feel like this episode's going to have a lot of things that we can't pronounce.
Yeah, it will. And I'm so sorry if those are people's names, because I'm like, I don't really care if I can't pronounce like a disease, because that's not my realm, but I always do apologize when it's somebody's name, because I'm very bad about that too. Of course. Yeah. But so I'm just going to refer to it as PCP and KS going forward, because I don't want to read all that, to be honest. But yes, June 5th, 1981, it was reported as PCP, but that would be later identified as AIDS. So, June 16th, that same year, 1981, the first man with AIDS is admitted to the clinical center at the National Institute of Health. He passed away on October 28th. So he did not live for very long once he received this diagnosis, and wanted to just highlight that. That is a very common theme, especially early in the crisis of once somebody is diagnosed with AIDS, they typically don't get that long to live. So July 3rd, 1981, the CDC releases another report about PCP and KS, and the term gay cancer starts circulating.
I had not heard that, I don't think, as a descriptor. That is terrible.
Yeah, that was wild to me. I was like, wow, okay, so starting strong.
Just putting a brick on the pedal.
Not even a month after, we're going to already start calling it gay cancer. Wow, okay. That was like homophobia speed run, I swear.
Oh, God, okay.
Again, hey, there's a joke that's at no one's expense other than homophobes, which can go away.
Yeah. Who cares if you make fun of homophobes?
Right. If we haven't made it clear what our stances are on this podcast, I think it's going to become very evident in this episode. So December 1981, that same year, a doctor named Dr. Rubenstein treats 5 infants who have PCP, which at least 3 of the mothers have engaged in drug usage or sex work. But his diagnosis of this was actually dismissed by his colleagues. They're like, no, it's not that. And no one took him seriously, which was a big mistake. And we will, soon learn that. December of 1981, that same year that all of this is going on, Bobby Campbell, the first patient with Kaposi's sarcoma or KS, goes public with his diagnosis. By the year's end, there is a cumulative total of 337 reported cases of individuals with severe immune deficiency in the U.S. 321 adults, and 16 children under the age of 13. Of those 337 cases, 130 were already dead by December 31st that year.
Goodness.
Whoa.
This is a recurring theme. This is real deadly, So I have a lot of points here from 1981 because it is the first year. And then we'll kind of get into, there'll be a little bit more space up until a couple of pivotal years. So I mentioned December 1981, Bobby Campbell, the first patient, goes public. August 8th of 1983, so skip forward a couple of years, AIDS activist Bobby Campbell appears with his partner, Bobby Hillard, on the cover of Newsweek magazine for the story Gay America, Sex, Politics, and the Impact of AIDS. It is the first time two gay men are pictured embracing one another on the cover of a U.S. mainstream national magazine.
Oh.
I mean, big impact. And they were already using the term of AIDS. So that was the first cover of that. And unfortunately, a year later in 1984, AIDS activist Bobby Campbell dies of AIDS-related illness at age 32. So he was on the cover in 1983. He was dead by 1984.
Wow.
About a year later. So
I'm starting to sense a very dark theme.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know it's going to sound kind of repetitive, but I think it's one of those things that really blows my mind. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is like fast. This is wild. So July 25th, 1985, skip a little bit ahead. Actor Rock Hudson, who played leading roles in over 60 Hollywood films, announces that he has AIDS. He is the first major U.S. public figure to do so. His acknowledgement marks a turning point in the public perceptions about the epidemic, and AIDS stories in the major media more than triple in the next 6 months. So shout out to Rock Hudson for going public with his diagnosis, because I think of course, it's not great that the numbers of the reports tripled, but it just means that more people were able to talk freely about that.
I was going to say, yeah, that would be a major turning point, having like a bigger voice who is affected by this, being able to talk about it, which would help. Kind of lighten the load, I guess. Yeah.
Over 60 films. That's wild. I mean, I'm not a film buff. Yeah.
I don't know if I can act in that many
That's
things.
So many. Too many films. So that was in July of 1985. September 17th, 1985. President Ronald Reagan mentions AIDS publicly for the first time, calling it a, quote, top priority, and defending his administration against criticism that funding for AIDS research is inadequate. So
a little bit of foreshadowing, I think.
Oh, yes, it is. Foreshadowing is a literary device. Yes. I love that quote. I love that quote from H Bomber Guide video.
So true.
So then go a little bit, a few weeks later, October 2nd, 1985, U.S. Congress allocates nearly $190 million for AIDS research, an increase of $70 million over the Reagan administration's budget request. The House Appropriations Committee also urges President Reagan to appoint a, quote, AIDS czar. I think that term is so crazy.
How AIDS czar?
That's wild.
Like, why are we using Russia's terms? Don't they think they're scary communists or something?
Well, they're trying to scare people into not getting AIDS by saying you're going to turn communist if you.
Maybe I have no idea.
I mean, with Reagan, honestly, that's a pretty solid chance of that.
Right, but I was like, AIDS czar. Okay, that's a weird little twist there. So a year later in October, October 22nd, 1986, the Surgeon General issues the, quote, Surgeon General's report on AIDS. The report makes it clear that HIV cannot be spread casually and calls for a nationwide education campaign, including early sex education in schools, increased use of condoms, and voluntary HIV testing. That kind of blew me away. Because if you know anything about the Reagan administration, they were not for sex education. So the next little thing I wanted to hit on, and we will hit on it again as well, is in February of 1987, AIDS activist Cleve Jones creates the first panel of the AIDS memorial quilt to honor his friend Marvin Feldman, who died on October 10th, 1986 of AIDS-related illness at the age of 33. The quilt panels were 3 feet wide by 6 feet long, the size and shape of a typical grave plot. So the AIDS memorial quilt is not something that I actually deep dived into in this episode, but it is very fascinating. And I think the specifications of the quilt panels relating to the size of a grave plot, I was like, wow, that's really powerful. That's morbid. Yeah. But very powerful. So,
no, yeah, I agree completely. That is very, like, that is a huge statement.
Yeah. And we will have a little update on that here in a second. So, March 19th, 1987, this is also huge. The FDA approves the first medication for AIDS, AZT. I'm not going to try to pronounce the actual name of it. It is an antiretroviral drug initially developed to treat cancer. Now these drugs are actually referred to as PEP or PEP, post-exposure prophylaxis. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but these are meant
I do know what you're talking about. I have gotten like Instagram ads before for some of these.
Yes.
Like a PrEP, I think, is an acronym I've been seeing a lot.
Yeah. So PEP is the post-exposure. It's meant to protect against HIV infection after you've been exposed to it or you think you might have. And PrEP is for people who are taking it pre-exposure to prevent you from, if you do have a partner, let's say, that has HIV and you don't know it, by taking PrEP, you're kind of like defending your body against that infection developing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's the two differences.
To inject the slightest little bit of levity that I can into this, the only reason why I know about PrEP and PEP is that in LA, apparently there are billboards that say, "Do you have PrEP belly?" Because apparently if you take PrEP, it's known to give you like a little bit of a pot belly. And so there are billboards for another medication in Los Angeles that will then help you get rid of your PrEP belly. So that's the only way I know about.
Oh my goodness.
PrEP.
That's wild.
Oh, I mean, kind of a baller marketing campaign. I'm not going to lie. Like that.
That's so funny.
It is like, it's wild, but oh my gosh.
They will always find a way to like spin something too of like, oh, you got a little bit of chub from taking this life-saving medication. Oh, you should do something about that. Like, just wild to me.
Gosh, only in LA.
Yeah, only if only they were dudes in San Francisco. Okay, I promise I'll stop with that one. So, April 19th, 1987, Princess Diana makes international headlines when she is photographed shaking the hand of an HIV-positive patient in a London hospital. I remember that. She goes on...
Princess Diana is my goat.
Yeah,
I love her.
She was amazing. She goes on to become a passionate advocate for people living with HIV and speaks forcefully against HIV/AIDS-related stigma and discrimination. So, nothing but respect for our princess. That
Queen
is amazing.
Or princess. Yeah.
Yeah, Queen. I mean, wait, princess. I think this next one is fascinating. May 31st, 1987, President Reagan makes his first public speech about AIDS.
How long is that after?
6 years.
I was trying to make sure.
After this disease has been identified. 2 years after he just mentions AIDS as a top priority. He actually makes a speech.
Sounds like it's a major top priority for you, buddy.
Yeah. And I wrote in my little notes, if this seems late, it's because it is. The first case is being identified around 1981. The first public patient, Bobby Campbell, being on the cover of Newsweek in 1983. One could argue that the U.S. government was doing some things behind the scenes and like that, Congress passing funding, like that's awesome. Some people could say, well, this was before the internet and the fast-paced media we live in. But my personal opinion is that the Reagan administration wasn't particularly concerned with assisting the queer community. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. I don't think I'm I don't think that's a hot take.
That's something I wholeheartedly agree with too. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think that's shocking to anybody.
I do truly believe there was malicious. Like it was malicious. Compliance is the wrong word, but it was just doing nothing maliciously.
Negligence. Yeah.
There we go.
Negligence. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So about a month after Reagan makes his first speech about AIDS, he signs an executive order, June 24th, 1987, creating the first presidential commission on AIDS. So he was like, I'm going to do something. Yeah, we'll see. Then on October 11th, 1987, the AIDS Memorial quilt goes on display for the first time on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. It displays the display features 1,920 4x8 panels and draws 500,000 visitors. So
strong.
It was huge. Not only was the quilts were huge, but the draw of people was huge as well.
Yeah. The impact it had was huge.
Right. This next one I think is particularly interesting because I think it highlights some of the issues that we see with the AIDS crisis as far as social stigma goes. October 14th, 1987, in a 94-2 vote, the U.S. Senate adopts the Helms Act, which requires federally financed educational materials about AIDS to stress sexual abstinence and forbids any material that, quote, promotes homosexuality or drug use. So, 94-2.
94-2 is crazy.
That is wild.
For that. Oh my God. Such an insane division. Or not division, I guess. Because it's it was almost unanimous. That's crazy.
Yeah, division between, the reality of the situation, saying what do you mean materials that are promoting homosexuality or drugs? I bet you there wasn't much out there anyway. What do you mean?
Well, probably not. Because a lot of people in that sort of administration probably assume that anything that just has homosexual activity in it is promoting it, which
just has the word gay. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All those Christmas songs, they're like, no.
Yes, now we don our gay apparel. No.
Oh my gosh, for Pete's sake.
No. Okay.
December 1st of 1988, World AIDS Day is observed for the first time. The date is designated by the World Health Organization and is supported by the United Nations. The theme of the observance was Join the Worldwide Effort. So, 1988, December 1st was the first World AIDS Day.
Okay.
That's a good day, right?
It's for awareness, yes, because it says join the worldwide effort. Yeah.
Yeah. So I say it's good in that. Yeah.
Right. Yes. It was by the World Health Organization. So it was to basically be like, hey, stop the spread of AIDS and join the effort. 1989, the Taylor year. The number of reported AIDS cases in the United States reaches 100,000.
Whoa.
What?
Pretty steep from the 300.
337 at the end of 1981. We have 100,000 at the, I believe the end of 1989, because it just says 1989. It doesn't say the beginning or end.
What on earth, dude?
Yeah. So, get this. It's about to get worse.
Boy. Yay.
1992, AIDS becomes the #1 cause of death for U.S. men ages 25 to 44.
Holy shit.
And in 1994, AIDS becomes the leading cause of death for all Americans ages 25 to 44. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services issues guidelines requiring applicants for grants from the NIH or the National Institute of Health to address the appropriate inclusion of women and minorities in clinical research. So, kind of wild it took that long.
A little bit, yeah. You would assume, after over 100,000 people get it, and a bunch of people, not just homosexual men, start getting it, you'd assume they would pick up on that and start researching a little bit more in that area.
Camp.
Right.
I don't know.
Eric Camp. Mr. Eric Camp.
Yes, my last name, Camp.
Johnny Eric Camp, your legal name.
Yes.
Lexi, did you mention that they used to call this gay pneumonia, or did I hear that?
Yes, that was, okay. I didn't mention that in the very first like in 1981, because they would call it gay pneumonia, but then they also would just call it gay cancer. And I wanted to highlight the term of gay cancer because I think
that's much worse.
It's worse because it's like gay pneumonia isn't great, but that one's coming from the fact of like some of the first cases that were identified were only among gay men. And so they were like, oh, is this like what is this? Is this a gay pneumonia? Like, what is this? But gay cancer, that just to me sounds like something that people would still say to this day, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of highlight that it didn't take a month before that term started circulating. But yes, gay pneumonia was another one. You're right.
Because I remember you talking about that, and again, not in a positive way in the absolute slightest, but as we know from what happened recently in 2020, as soon as something is labeled as a specific minority group or just a certain group, again, the Spanish flu, which was, again, the early 1900s, they basically have all but confirmed that it might have started in an entirely different country than Spain. But every single person has literally called it the Spanish flu ever since then. And again, with the stigma of AIDS, that like these people that are, again, gay men, gay women, all these people that, again, are getting this, they were labeled as the crux of all of these people that then had it. And again, yes, they might account for 1 or 2% or however many that it actually was. But as soon as that stigma was then put on them, they just ran with it, and then they could villainize and they could vilify gays of all natures and be like, no, see, this is what happens if we allow gay people into this. So again, I don't see it in the absolute slightest as a positive, but we have multiple examples of through history of, oh, it's the Spanish flu, I'm not going to say the one for the most recent pandemic, but a lot of the things about
there are a few. There are a few, unfortunately, for that one.
Yep, none of them are good.
Not at all.
But
it's not the scientific name for it either. So yeah, I think that's a good point that you added, and that's why I talked about it, and the reason why I mentioned the 1994 when the Department of Health and Human Services said, hey, you have to include women and minorities in this clinical research. I'm like, they weren't already doing that? Like, that kind of blew my mind because
you would just kind of assume they would study everyone who had it,
right? I mean, it's America, so, I'm not terribly surprised. I'm sad that it took it being the leading cause of death for all Americans.
I'm not mad,
aged 25 to 44. Which are like prone to heart attacks, accidents, like all of that kind of stuff that now, maybe? Sure.
How common are shark attacks again? I don't even remember.
Not very.
Less common than that.
Jaws lied to you. Jaws lied to you. So that statistic or that quote there about becoming the leading cause of death for all Americans ages 25 to 44 in 1994, I wanted to point that out because the large part of the stigma of AIDS was that it was a gay disease, like we talked about, as well as it centered white men in this conversation. And while many white men face discrimination, social rejection, hate crimes, I mean, you name it, this is where the intersectionality of the disease is very important to highlight that while, yes, gay men were proportionately affected, it was not solely gay white men. It was gay men of color as well, and other minority groups. And then, add into the addition of women and of children. And we talked about that doctor who diagnosed 5 infants with this disease. And it was because, again, their mothers were involved in either sex work or drug usage, which therefore, sharing of needles, passing of the disease. It was still incredibly important to keep that in mind that, a lot of people were suffering and not by choice. I mean, no one was suffering by choice. And the campaign to say, oh, don't sleep around, don't be promiscuous, don't get the gay cancer, that just wasn't accurate. That just wasn't anywhere close to what actually was going on. And it's disgusting that there is still a legacy of that and that still gets talked about.
Yeah, that's mental.
Yeah. So, unfortunately,
and then it all got better, right? and everything's
Totally.
better.
Define better.
And we
better.
cured it, and there's not a single instance of discrimination towards people based on their sexuality, and we've really advanced. And yeah, right?
Oh, you
Somewhat.
sweet summer child.
Maybe.
I of course don't think that.
No, I thought you did. You fooled me.
Dang. Okay.
By October 31st, 1995, 500,000 cases of AIDS had been reported in the United States.
Yeah, so it didn't get better.
No, I was wrong. Oh, I'm so sorry.
So
You being wrong, that never happens.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
sorry.
never wrong.
Oh, you're okay.
Sorry.
So from 1989, we had 100,000 cases in the U.S. 1995, we now have 500,000 cases in the U.S.
Oh my gosh.
And that's only promiscuous and gay people, right, Lexi?
Yes, right. It's only if you like go to a gay club. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Totally.
It's like
yeah.
you ordered like the specific drink, you know, that there you go. That's how you get it. Totally.
Dang. Okay.
Because you like to party in club.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is really that simple.
I know, right? Sorry.
It hurts to even. I'm so sorry. It hurts to even joke
hurts
about
to say.
this.
Yeah.
Because like.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's what we're, like, used to doing, and I'm like, you know, I feel, and, like, obviously, like, the jokes aren't with malicious intent. Like, it's to the fucking, sorry, F-bomb. It's, like, it's towards the people who act like this and who are homophobic and, like, treat it like this, right? Mm-hmm. And, like, you know, but, you know, it's still, it just sucks. At the end of the day, this is just terrible, everything that's happened and what's going on.
We're just using satire of like, oh, it's that easy. It's like, yeah, obviously
yeah.
not. The you know, just crazy to even think
it
about.
It really is not that easy.
Spoiler, it was not that easy.
Yeah, there you go.
Plot twist. So in some slight good news, 1996, AIDS is no longer the leading cause of death for all Americans aged 25 to 44.
That's great.
Although it does remain the leading cause of death for African Americans in this group.
Dang it.
So they're like, yay, not really. It's still bad.
Just so quickly.
Yeah, it's still.
Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
October 1996, the AIDS memorial quilt is displayed in its entirety for the last time. It covers the entire National Mall in Washington, D.C. So,
holy crap.
Yeah. And then fast forward to 2012. During AIDS 2012, the AIDS memorial quilt is displayed in its entirety in Washington for the first time since 1996. Volunteers have to rotate nearly 50,000 panels to ensure that the entire work is displayed.
Oh,
Microsoft Research, the University of Southern California, the NAMES Project Foundation, and a handful of other institutions collaborate to create a zoomable map of the quilt. So I believe they digitized this, and you can zoom in and actually view it.
I mean, it's probably the best solution. Like, you would have to at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just so massive.
Very, very cool way to capture that forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
to share it, yeah.
Because, like, I would have never been able to see it, and I saw pieces of it while I was researching because, again, it's been archived digitally. December 21st, 2015, the FDA announces that it will lift its 30-year-old ban on all blood donations by men who have sex with men and institute a policy that allows them to donate blood if they have not had sexual contact with another man in the previous 12 months. Because it's something that I didn't really highlight, but there was a ban on gay men or just men who have sex with men in general, which would include bisexual men as well, that they could not donate blood.
I have to look this up, but I think that ban is still in effect in Canada.
Oh, it is?
Oh, that you can't donate at all?
Let me double check. Yeah, because it was there before. I don't know if it ever got updated. I would assume it did at some point. But last I heard when I was in like high school was that it was still limited. Like, if you had sexual contact with another man, you wouldn't be allowed to donate blood.
Wow.
But I will have to look that up and make sure I'm not talking on my ass.
That does make sense, though, because it was 2015 when the FDA lifted that 30-year-old ban in the U.S. So that would make a lot of sense if when you were still in high school, if that was the rule in Canada. It has maybe changed since then. Okay. That was 10 years ago.
Removing questions about... Okay, apparently as of September 2022, it is... all donors are asked if they have the NAS. Okay, so it still is in effect, but it's only if it's been within the last 3 months, as of September 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, so just for clarification, so if you have gay sex, and I don't know how else to say it. If you have gay sex for the next 3 months, you cannot donate blood still.
Yes.
Essentially, yes. Okay. If you, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
If a man has sexual contact with another man.
Yeah. That's probably as far as I can go into the specifics while retaining hope this video stays monetized.
Right.
It won't, but it's,
Right. And then December 1st, 2018 marks the 30th anniversary of the observance of World AIDS Day. So, of course, there is more on the timeline up to 2024, I believe. So go check that out if you're interested in deep diving. Again, we don't have 3 hours to just go over the timeline, even though that was very long. But I wanted to pick pieces that I thought were relevant or maybe just kind of stood out because as the timeline shows, it's clear that we're still dealing with HIV/AIDS. We have come a long way in a relatively short amount of time, all things considered, as it relates to the prevention and the treatment of this disease. At the same time, I personally don't believe we have come as far as I had hoped when it comes to the social stigma and anti-queer sentiment, specifically in America. Because that's the scope that I researched as well as that's where I live. And so, I wanted to look in what my own country was doing about this. But that is all to say that HIV/AIDS is still, again, we had a World AIDS Day because it still affects the entire world, not just America. I just kind of zoomed in on America because that's where a lot of my sources were from. And again, just made sense to me to be like, what was kind of going on in America at that time? Because if I looked up all of the other countries as well, again, we'd be here for like 12 hours. Yeah,
it is a very complex history to go through.
Right. So now that we have recapped the timeline and I've given some disclaimers, we're actually going to dive into some of the art stuff that I promised at the beginning. So it's not all just terrible, sad, even though it's still going to be kind of sad. The first artist that we're going to talk about is the one that you guys mentioned, Keith Haring. He is very well known within the art of the AIDS crisis. So I'm going to start with him. And Keith Haring himself was born in 1958. He was known as a pop and a street artist who got his start from drawings in the New York subways. So lived in New York.
Let's go.
After gaining recognition, he did larger murals, a lot of them actually being commissioned pieces. So he was not really a starving artist, which is great and kind of shocking. But he did more than 50 public artworks between 1982 and 1989, many of them created voluntarily for hospitals, daycare centers, and schools. So that's according to Wikipedia. He has a very distinct artistic style, which is shown in this piece by him called Untitled. And a lot of these are called Untitled, by the way, and like have a thing out to the side. But his work, Untitled 1982. You may have seen this before. You may not have seen this before. It is two, looks like dancing figures, and there is a little patchwork heart, so to speak.
I was gonna say, I don't think I've seen this before, but it looks great.
It's very cute.
It is very pop art. Like it is.
Yes, yeah. Keith Haring was actually really close with Andy Warhol, who's like known for pop art as well. And so that was really not, I was like, whoa, I was surprised, but I was also like, oh wait, no, I'm really not, because that was a huge movement during that time. So later in his career, his art shifted to become more about activism. He did a mural with the message "Crack is whack" to talk about the crack epidemic that was going on in New York City. And that was in 1986. So here is Keith Haring's "Crack is Whack" mural.
Okay, I am genuinely curious. Is this where "Crack is Whack" comes from?
It might be.
The same
like
thing.
Genuinely, it might be. Because he did one. This one here from 1986 is actually the second one that he did. Because the first one that he did, the city ordered him to cover it up. And because it was unauthorized, because he just did it on, it says this one was on the handball court at 128th Street and 2nd Avenue. So, I mean, I can't tell if this is, I don't think this is the original location, because it says after he was ordered to cover up the unauthorized mural, the New York City Parks Department asked him to create a new one with the same theme. So
they're like, hey, yo.
Yeah, I want to say I think this was the new one that he did, that it was actually, approved.
The one that
for
they were
him to
actually
do.
cool with.
Right, yeah. Even though I'm like, this is awesome. Like,
Now,
I think
Lexi,
it's
for the
cool.
audio listeners, could you describe what we're looking at currently?
Oh, yes, I do apologize. I will try to do that with these works of art. It is an orange wall background with a bunch of different drawings in that kind of pop art, Keith Haring style, obviously, because it's Keith Haring. There are some skulls. There is a man being eaten or about to be eaten by like a gator, I think, maybe. And it just says in the middle in big letters, crack is whack. And then it's coming out of like a crack pipe in a cloud.
So real for that.
Is the man at the bottom right of the image Keith Haring?
No, I don't believe so. It kind of looks like George Michael,
No.
but I know it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like a blondie George Michael.
A blondie.
Fair.
Yeah. So no, that is not Keith Haring.
Okay.
But like I said, later in his career, his art shifted to become more about activism. He did many pieces where AIDS awareness was a central theme. Silence Equals Death is a piece that he did the same year that he was diagnosed with AIDS himself. And I will show you a picture of what Silence Equals Death looks like. While I'm getting ready to send this to you, I will describe it to the audio listeners. It is a pink triangle, similar to that was used to identify gay members. I don't know what the word prisoners, captives of concentration camps. I don't know what the proper word for that is. But the gay men in concentration camps is the pink triangle, and these little figures are doing the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil little covering of their eyes, ears, and mouths. And it is said that was to be alluding to the Reagan administration refusing to acknowledge AIDS, and people kind of just being like, la, 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 it's not happening. But no, I'm not sorry. I know that sounds goofy to say, but like, just tuning it out.
I get what you mean entirely.
I do too. It was just la 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 la.
You laughed at the la la la.
Yeah.
But
I like to imagine that the Reagan administration was like literally physically doing that.
Yeah.
Like covering their eyeballs.
It was the equivalent of that. What they were doing.
Absolutely.
For real.
Oh gosh, no, but that is. I hadn't seen this painting before. Actually, that is.
I had not seen that one either.
Crazy.
And I think it's very interesting because I was somebody that was really into learning about the history of the Holocaust and reading firsthand accounts and reading people's stories. And I knew that the pink triangle was something that was used to identify gay people in the concentration camps. But using it as a symbol of like calling back to that era and being like, we're in a similar sort of thing, or we're being oppressed in a new way, but we're using old imagery, or not old imagery, but older imagery.
Yeah.
I think that's really fascinating, and I think it's interesting when artists do that. So Keith Haring is definitely one that does that, as well as a handful of other artists. So that is Silence Equals Death, and he actually did a follow-up piece as well called Ignorance Equals Fear / Silence Equals Death. Again, we have the motif of the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. The pink triangle at the bottom, it says fight AIDS, act up. Act Up was actually one of the organizations that he was a part of. I am forgetting now what that stood for. It'll take me way too long to find it. But anyway, just trust me. Trust me, bro. It was an activist group that he was a part of.
Okay.
So that's kind of a broad strokes a little bit of, Keith Haring. Obviously, he did a lot more pieces. He did a whole series of like Andy Warhol as Mickey Mouse called like Andy Mouse, which I thought was really fascinating. Doesn't relate to the AIDS crisis, so I didn't include it. But I was like, had no idea he was such good buddies with Andy Warhol. So The piece that I wanted to talk about most when it comes to Keith Haring, and I think I shared this with you guys before I did this episode, is Keith Haring's unfinished painting.
Oh.
And the reason why, you know exactly where I'm going here. The reason why I wanted to talk about this piece is because this circulated online, I think about 2 years ago is what it said, that someone used AI to... it's even on the Wikipedia page here about this. Somebody used AI to complete the unfinished painting. Why they felt so motivated to do that, I do not know. I'm sure you guys have seen this because you both groaned and you knew what I was talking about. But
yep.
I will.
I unfortunately know all about this.
Lexi, I believe I was the one that actually shared the person that made the AI monstrosity.
Yes, you did to me. Yes.
I'm the one that
That's how I
hurt
found
your
out
soul.
about it. Yes, you did. So for those of you who have not seen it, please don't look up the terrible AI finished product of this.
Finished in very large quotes. Yes.
It's the screen isn't white, but I don't know about how finished the painting really is. For the audio listeners, it is the top left corner of the painting. Kind of resembles almost like a bandana sort of pattern. It's Keith Haring's style of little figures and things like that. And only that top corner has been painted with any of the symbols, and the paint is dripping down. The rest of the canvas is blank, is white. And I think that this piece is particularly moving because this is considered one of Haring's last works. However, he purposely left it unfinished. He did not just, start it and then was not able to finish it. He purposely said, I'm going to do a piece of this and leave it unfinished to symbolize his own and many others' lives that had been cut short due to AIDS. So I just think that that's so powerful. And I had it mistaken. I thought that he just was not able to finish it. But I learned that no, it was very intentional that he was going to leave it unfinished because he had been diagnosed with AIDS at that point, and then passed away. Let me get his actual date. I wrote the ages of when these people passed away, but not the date. So unfortunately, Keith Haring did pass away from complications from AIDS on February 16th, 1990.
Good.
He was 31. Crazy to me, like so young.
That is wild. But that's only a couple years off of how old I think everyone in like this podcast is.
Yes.
Like, that's
right.
Like, damn.
Just absolutely mind-blowing to me. And so, I wanted to share that piece. And if you are listening to the audio and you have not seen that piece, I definitely recommend that you go check that out, as well as some of these other pieces. Just a quick Google search, you'll find them. They're nothing too crazy. It is very obscure.
Striking.
Something along those same lines, and I remember seeing this image a few years back, but I think that it's very poignant and very fits right now as well, it's a similar image about the same topic, which is in 1993, the San Francisco Gay Men's Choir did a demonstration of how AIDS impacted their choir back then. And I will send the image now. It's my turn.
I am the one who sends the image.
Aha! But this image here, and again, I believe I've shared it with Lexi, and it's not Eric saying it as well, is what really...
I have seen... You weren't the one that sent it to me, but I have seen this image
I have
before.
not seen this.
But
you told me about this, but I have not seen this image.
But this image is of the original San Francisco Gay Men's Choir. The ones in white are the only remaining ones that did not die of AIDS.
Wow.
This is, again...
There's only 7 of them, by the way, for the audio listeners.
Yes.
There are 7
of an entire
out of,
lineup of...
Yeah, probably 50 plus.
At least 100.
At least. Yeah. I couldn't even count. I'm bad at counting. But it is the same kind of harrowing thing that, again, shows the impact in such a simple way of... I'm just going to go with Eric's number because it's probably closer of...
It doesn't seem like there's at least 20 people per row, so I would say about 100 or a little over 100
Oh, there's 5 rows. I thought there was only 4 rows. So even, 100 men with their back turned to the camera in all black, and 7 of them facing the camera in white, and those are the only survivors from how hard AIDS hit it. And I feel like it really speaks and says that same thing. So I just wanted to share that with you and the audience.
Yeah. No, it is very, I mean, both this and the unfinished painting, they're both such visceral demonstrations of just how hard and like how empty things are now with the amount of people that had passed away from the AIDS crisis. Like it's
hard to fathom.
It's no, it is wild
to me because and why I wanted to do this episode and talk about some of these artists is because I this is not something that I was alive for a lot of this. I was born kind of in like the middle-ish to the tapering off-ish in America of AIDS, and so I don't ever remember really learning about it or hearing about it. I mean, I knew what AIDS was, of course, like people would talk about that and, how it was a transmissible disease and all that. But I never really knew just how hard it hit, how big it truly was. And looking at it from the perspective of these artists and even that photo of the Gay Men's Choir, which I had not seen, those images are so striking, and I feel like adding context to that actually makes them better. And, they always say about like jokes and stuff, well, if you have to explain a joke, it, ruins the joke and all that stuff. I think that art is the exact opposite of that. I think that if you provide context for the art, or you give people a piece of like where this was at in history or who the artist was, I think that enhances the art tenfold, even though I do truly believe a lot of this imagery from the AIDS crisis, a lot of this art could stand on its own.
Yeah.
The context just makes it all that more powerful to me.
Yeah. And like every piece of art like has I mean, I know we're kind of broadening the scope a little bit, like we can narrow it back down, but like every piece of art has an intent. Like there is something that the artist wants to demonstrate, like with what they're making. And both of these examples are perfect examples of that.
Right.
Absolutely.
And guess what? I got more examples for you.
No.
How's that for a segue?
You have to get back on track at some point.
Right. So the next artist that I want to talk about is a man named David Wojnarowicz. I had to write out how to say his last name because I didn't want to butcher it. But he was born in 1954. And he was a man of many artistic disciplines, including photography, painting, film, even performance art. He was first recognized for his use of graffiti and street art with, quote, stencils of houses on fire that appeared on the exposed sides of East Village buildings. And so the East Village is in New York. And I'm just going to take a screenshot of what some of those stencil arts would look like. For the audio listeners, of course, imagine if somebody's, spray painted with a stencil. This is a picture of, if it'll actually, where I get to where I can show it to you guys. It is a picture of a little just house, similar to probably how a child might draw a house. And then there are some flames coming out of the windows of the house. So pretty, as far as like execution, pretty basic, but that's kind of how he got his start. But Wojnarowicz was not basic. I want to just be totally clear. He was totally awesome and not basic, but the art stencil style itself, kind of a more basic style, not very flashy.
Yeah. But, once again, another example of like, you don't need like the flashiest, well, I guess this is kind of flashy in its own way, but you don't need like the most
flashy in the way that it's fire.
Well, true. But yeah, you don't need the most super aesthetically complicated like thing to really get your message across, right?
Right. Yeah. So David Wojnarowicz, his art had always been experimental in nature. I listed a bunch of different mediums that he used, but it wasn't until the death of his great friend and mentor, who was also, it says they had a brief period of them being lovers, but I didn't want to just reduce it to that. Yeah. His name was Peter Hajar. I hope I'm saying that right. That really turned Wojnarowicz's art to become more about AIDS activism. According to Wikipedia, I thought this was interesting, Wojnarowicz collaborated with video artist Tom Rubnitz on the short film Listen to This in 1992, which was a critique of the Reagan and Bush administration's homophobic responses and failure to address the AIDS crisis. And it is a little YouTube clip. We won't play it on the podcast because I do not want to take someone else's art and, just like show it shamelessly.
You're not into
but
AI.
I will.
Sorry.
Yeah, can't say that I am.
I don't think a lot of people are.
Yeah.
True.
I will just include a little screen cap. It is not too complicated to follow. It is actually literally just David Wojnarowicz talking to the camera directly. It looks like he's wearing a suit of some kind. He's in front of a window with some blinds. And he is basically just saying that, like, I'm talking to you right now because I have had the money to be able to pay to be broadcasted to your TV. And so it's kind of a commentary on, the loudest voices, the voices with the most money. And this is where the criticism of the Reagan and Bush administration comes in of, like, the government has the people's ear and the ability to be on TV. And so whatever the government is putting out is what people are listening to. And so that's what this video was a critique of. If you would like to go watch it yourself, please check it out. The David Wojnarowicz Foundation has uploaded it. It is only 42 seconds long because it was unfinished due to the death of both Tom Rubnitz and Wojnarowicz from AIDS complications in 1992. They actually died less than a month apart from each other. So,
wow.
That is why this video is so short. So, yes, please take a look at this. And I feel like there might be a longer cut of this because this is just a clip of it. So it might actually be longer than 42 seconds of the footage that is left. But according to the David Wojnarowicz Foundation, in the description says that it was unfinished due to their deaths. So just very interesting and very cool ways that art can manifest, and ultimately very tragic and sad that both of these fabulous artists died from AIDS complications and were not able to finish a work that was literally directly a response and advocating for, like, hey, this is serious. Just kind of a cruel irony, if you ask me. Not funny in the slightest, but just cruel.
Yeah.
David Wojnarowicz, I just wanted to add a few quotes or things that he did that were not necessarily just his art, but he was pretty kick-ass. Like, not gonna lie, he was pretty kick-ass. In 1988, he wore a leather jacket with the pink triangle, again signaling back to imagery from the Holocaust, and it had the text that said, "If I die of AIDS, forget burial. Just drop my body on the steps of the FDA."
That is
That's
cold. I
hard.
love that.
That's metal as hell.
I love that.
He also wrote in his 1991 memoir, which wild that he wrote that memoir, was able to actually finish that. In his 1991 memoir, it was titled Close to the Knives. He imagined, quote, what it would be like if each time a lover, friend, or stranger died of this disease, their friends, lovers, or neighbors would take the dead body and drive with it in a car 100 miles an hour to Washington, D.C., and blast through the gates of the White House and come to a screeching halt before the entrance and dump their lifeless form on the front steps.
Dang.
So, dude was really serious.
Dude,
he was
yeah.
like, the blood is on your hands, U.S. government.
I mean, that's
and
the energy that everyone should have had
The whole time?
That's the-
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So on October 11th, 1992, there was a different activist named David Robinson who received wide media attention when he dumped the ashes of his partner, Warren Krause, on the grounds of the White House as a protest against George H.W. Bush's inaction in fighting AIDS. Robinson reported that his action was inspired by the text that Wojnarowicz wrote in Close to the Knives.
Wow.
And then in even more like just chef's kiss. In 1996, Wojnarowicz's own ashes were scattered on the White House lawn.
Oh,
There you
that's
go.
perfect.
So, he was like,
No,
hey.
that is incredible.
Yeah. So, obviously, very tragic that he passed away due to complications of AIDS. And wish it did not turn out that way. But wow, just kudos to the people that read his memoir, read what he was saying about that, and really did feel enraged and inspired that, like, hey, government, you're like, their blood is on your hands.
Oh, yeah.
And you should have to confront that.
And like, not to get like overly corny, but I mean, like, he may have died, but the like inspiration and the legacy that he so clearly manifested in everyone that was supportive of his work is just, it can't be understated. Like, it is still alive and well.
Absolutely. Like, I'm like, man, why did I not hear about this guy? Like, that's like metal as hell. That's like, it's honestly, not awesome because like the AIDS crisis is not awesome. Someone passing from AIDS is not awesome.
It sucks that something like this had to happen at all, but glad that he did it. Like I'm glad that he was as abrasive against the White House as he was.
Yes.
To, like, really put a fire under their asses.
Yeah, not mincing words, not trying to play nice, just saying, hey, it's on you. So rest in peace, David Wojnarowicz. You were a badass.
King.
King.
All these people we're talking about. Absolute cool ass people. So on that note, we're going to transition into the next artist I want to talk about. That is Felix Gonzalez Torres. He was born in 1957 and he was known as a visual artist. He was a photographer as well as he incorporated different mediums in his art, such as paper stacks, puzzles, string lights, and even candy. So he used a lot of different unique mediums to create his pieces. His works in general were more open-ended. However, there are some that have a more straightforward meaning, like this piece called Untitled 1990, where he was addressing right-wing politicians and comparing them to high-ranking Nazi politicians. So I will share this with you guys and read a little bit about it. This is from Art News, Art in America. It is a stack of large red papers. It says, Gonzalez Torres's art periodically addressed right-wing, oh my gosh, cannot say that word, right-wing politicians. In this piece, he references Heinrich Himmler, a high-ranking member of the Nazi Party, and Jesse Helms, a U.S. senator at the center of culture wars. So Gonzalez Torres was basically saying, like, the people that are in here, in government, these right-wing people, they are equivalent to people that were in the Nazi Party. And I can't say I disagree with his analysis. I think he was pretty spot on.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a pretty fair assessment.
Right. Right. So just kind of like badass, right out the gate, making art that's very, not mincing words, saying exactly what he wants to say.
Very in your face.
Right.
Literally holding up a mirror to the people who he thinks need to see it.
True. Right.
Or who do need to see it, really, if we're talking like objectively as hell. Like
people that probably need to see it but won't, unfortunately, because sad.
Sad.
Art imitates life.
So the next piece that I want to share from him is more related to the AIDS crisis, obviously. The first one I showed you in the, not insulting because that guy sucks. The U.S. Senator, calling him out, I guess I should say, because I don't think it's an insult because he sucked. But Gonzalez Torres calling out the senator, that was also as it related to the AIDS crisis because there was a lot of, again, culture wars and, oh my gosh, we should be a moral, upstanding society. And so that was also related to the AIDS crisis, but it was not like distinctly linked. This next piece I'm going to show you guys is more related to the AIDS crisis. And this artwork is called Untitled, in parentheses, Perfect Lovers. It says 1987 to 1990. And I'll have you guys look at this while I describe it. It is two analog clocks that are right next to each other that are set for the same time and ticking in sync. At least they're supposed to. If they get out of sync, they reset them. So there are a lot of interpretations of this piece, and there are other pieces where Gonzalez-Torres used clocks to, express what his message was. But this one specifically is about his partner Ross, who was diagnosed with AIDS. Many people believe that this is a nod to like roughly around the time when Ross was diagnosed, or when they found out that Ross was diagnosed with AIDS. So it is kind of this idea of, being perfectly in sync, but eventually you will fall out of sync with someone who is going to pass from complications due to AIDS. The reason why this piece has this interpretation is because, and I'm going to directly quote this, quote, in a letter sent to Ross Laycock in 1988, that was Felix Gonzalez-Torres' partner. Felix Gonzalez-Torres showed a rough sketch of this piece merely entitled Lovers, and he wrote, quote, "Don't be afraid of the clocks. They are our time. The time has been so generous to us. We are imprinted time with the sweet taste of victory. We conquered fate by meeting at a certain time in a certain space. We are a product of the time. Therefore, we give back credit where it is due. We are synchronized, now, forever. I love you." Wow, and just even reading that, sorry, I get a little bit choked up just reading that.
That's
it's very moving.
I feel like I've been saying this way too much, but yeah, that's powerful. Like that's beautiful.
So yeah, some people have said, no, this piece isn't about AIDS and isn't about, a gay partnership. No, it is.
Bro said it.
Pretty obviously. Yeah, pretty obviously. And if that's not how people interpret it, they need some glasses, because that's pretty
on the nose.
It's pretty obvious. So that piece in general, I think very, very interesting. But the biggest piece that got to me as I was kind of scrolling through, looking through Gonzalez-Torres' works, was one of his candy work. So I mentioned that he used candy as a medium. And this is one of, I think, 20 works that he did. And this is from the Art Institute of Chicago. So as I send a photo, I will describe it. It is a pile of candy, and they're individually wrapped little pieces of hard candy, and they are just in a pile.
Oh, I've seen that before. Yeah.
Have you?
I have seen this pile of candy
like a
before.
Picture?
Yeah. Not in person.
in a photo. Not to spoil, don't spoil for camp, but do you know anything about it other than you've just seen it?
it was explained to me a long time ago, but I cannot right now remember. But you're going to explain it. But I remember that I was like,
yeah, I'm going to explain it.
I was
just like, oh, hey, wow.
But that's,
yeah. I'm like, oh, have you seen this one?
I remember it's sad.
I had never seen this until it is sad, unfortunately. Spoiler.
This whole episode. Sad.
So this piece is called Untitled Portrait of Ross in LA. And that is a reference to Ross, who we just spoke about, which was Gonzalez-Torres' partner. And the cool thing about Gonzalez-Torres' candy works are that they are, quote, manifestable. The artworks are not physically permanent. They can exist in more than one place at a time and can vary from one installation to the next in response to the decisions made by the exhibitor, the interaction of the audiences, and changing circumstances. So there have been many iterations of this installation and this piece. Many people have used different types of candy, things like that. However, the important thing to note is that there is the recommendation for this piece to be about 175 pounds worth of candy. So the version that I showed you is from the Art Institute of Chicago. It's in other places with different types of candy, like I mentioned, but there is some parameters around it that should be around the 175 pounds, and that guests are encouraged to actually take a piece of the candy while they view it and eat the candy, take it home, engage with the art. Now, I'm not really an abstract art person, like I've mentioned to you guys before, and I have a hard time drawing meaning from something if I'm just looking at it and I go, I don't really know anything about the stars. I don't even know who the artist is. I don't know the history. But the main interpretation of this piece is one that sticks with me a lot because the 175-pound weight recommendation is to represent Ross Laycock before he passed away due to AIDS in 1991. This was Ross's reported weight before his diagnosis. And
yeah, I thought it would be something like that, like representing a human body.
Right.
Jeez, okay.
There are a lot of interpretations as to why visitors are encouraged to take a candy and to interact with it. I think a lot of them, there's, a lot can be said. We'd be here forever if I went over all of them. But one of the interpretations that I really liked was on a website called Queer Art History and Love Between Men. And it talks about this piece. And it says that the viewers were encouraged to take a piece of the candy to showcase that Ross's weight diminished and his physical body would eventually pass. Although most of the time in the installation, it is replenished for the visitors because how much would that suck that you go to see this installation and there's none left, Right.
There'd just be like a quarter of the candy left.
Right. So it is replenished by the people who are doing the installation. But I thought this interpretation was very cool, that it speaks to a sense of pleasure, enjoying a yummy candy and having a happy moment. And there's even some erotic interpretations of that as well, because Gonzalez Torres himself did not like sensationalizing and making those suffering with AIDS just be another spectacle or another number. He didn't necessarily love all of just the, nude photos of people dying from AIDS and all of that. He wanted to encourage the significance of it without just being morbid all the time. So I think that the, untitled portrait of Ross in LA being these colorful candies and, the viewers are encouraged to take a piece of the candy. I think that's really beautiful. And as much as it's also sad, it is a celebration of Ross.
Yeah.
And I think a linking of just queer identity and just sharing that moment and really being present. So I thought that was very, very moving, and I hope that you guys enjoyed seeing that piece and got to hit you with the unfortunate, sad part that Felix Gonzalez Torres himself did die due to complications of AIDS in January of 1996, and he was only 38 years old. So again, very young.
I am curious to ask, actually, you guys, if you went to a museum today and you saw this pile of candy, would you take a piece of it?
Yes, because they do a new installation of it.
Well, yeah, true, but I don't know, with what it represents, I would
you mean
feel
like
bad
the
almost.
symbolism of it, like you'd be like, well, maybe I I feel this connection. Yeah, because
it would kind of feel like taking like a piece of Ross's soul, which I guess is like the intent and like it's encouraged, but I don't know. I would just feel bad.
Right. Yeah. That's really interesting, is that like some people will view
and I guess that's another part of the art, right? Like that's that's curious. Yeah, I just figured I'd toss that question out there because I mean,
I'm glad you brought that up because it's like I feel like, I would take a piece of the candy because I love that interpretation of like what are you?
I thought you were gonna be like,
I'm hungry.
I thought you were gonna be like, because I like candy. Like I thought that was just gonna be
no.
answer.
I mean, yeah, I do like it. Listen, one of these was done with Jolly Ranchers. I do love me a blue raspberry Jolly Rancher. Okay.
I mean, the pile looks kind of like Jolly Ranchers.
Right. But I will say, no, not just out of disrespect of I'm hungry and I want a blue Jolly Rancher.
Jolly Rancher just takes a bite. Like, okay.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks Felix.
Homie.
Yeah. But no, I think that's an interesting point that you brought up because I didn't even really think twice about taking a candy because I love the interpretation of sharing in a moment and sharing that moment of connection of like a way of honoring not just Ross and not just Felix Gonzalez Torres, but like those who have lost their lives to complication of AIDS and just being like having that as a physical thing of like, I get to enjoy this little piece of candy and to do this, you know, almost, it's kind of weird, almost in a communion sort of sense, not, and I don't want to be sacrilegious. I'm not trying to compare this to like Jesus. And so religious people, please don't be in my comments saying I'm being sacrilegious. But almost in a way of like, I'm doing it in remembrance. I'm doing it in remembrance of these lives.
I like that, actually. Yeah, I like that interpretation too.
But very fair if you're like
yeah.
rather not.
Well, no. Yeah. But I do like the communion comparison, actually, because that's something I didn't think about, actually. Like, obviously, like you said, like, you don't really
Please,
need it to have like a religious undertone or anything.
Don't be in the comments. I'm not trying to be sacrilegious.
But, you know, it is like, if you think of it, it's like the real intent is like him, like taking a piece of him that in some form lives on by you interacting with it. Like, I think that's beautiful. I think that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'm glad. I was going to say, I'm not just taking a Jolly Rancher because I'm hungry.
Yummy.
Okay, guys.
Just takes a bite.
Oh, my
yummy.
goodness. Okay.
Yummy Jolly Rancher.
We have one more artist to get through before we get to our fun game that we have. So hold on for the sads for a little bit longer, and then we will get to a fun game.
A little bit more sads. We'll
right. So the last artist we're going to talk about is Robert Mapplethorpe. He is very, he was one of the only other people that I recognized when I was going through a list of different artists and things like that. He was born in 1946. He is known mostly for his photography, mostly the black and white photographs. I don't know if he did stuff in color as well, but like the vast majority of the photographs I saw from him were black and white. It's entirely possible that you have seen a work of Mapplethorpe and just not known that it was him.
The name sounds familiar, but I don't think, like I can't recall to memory his past work.
So here is his self-portrait from 1980. This is a very famous one.
I'm right there with Camp. Mapplethorpe sounds very...
Yes. And he is very often cited in when people talk about the AIDS crisis, when people talk about queer art. He was a very influential and controversial person in that space. But he took photos of a bunch of different things and obviously a lot of people. He did celebrity portraits, things like that. Some of his more controversial work was that of the gay male BDSM subculture going on in New York. So there are obviously, and I mentioned this a little bit later too, a lot of photos I'm not going to show because
why
we get this video removed.
Yep.
But if you are interested in seeing some of his work, you can just look it up. It is available. It is archived, but it does obviously contain nudity and sexual themes.
Yeah, not anything we can really put up on here.
Yeah, not going to be putting any of that up. But I will talk about kind of how that manifested into being slightly controversial. Well, I say slightly. No, it was very controversial.
Glad to know.
Yeah, I know. So while he did take nude photographs of both males and females, this is what his, and again, it gets kind of confusing, his girlfriend / lover / longtime friend, Patti Smith, who is a musician, said about him in her memoir. She says, quote, Robert took areas of dark human consent and made them into art. He worked without apology, investing the homosexual with grandeur, masculinity, and enviable nobility. Without affectation, I don't know how to read words sometimes.
Yeah.
Sure. He created a presence that was wholly male without sacrificing feminine grace. He was not looking to make a political statement or an announcement of his evolving sexual persuasion. He was presenting something new, something not seen or explored as he saw it and explored it. Robert sought to elevate aspects of male experience, to imbue homosexuality with mysticism. As French person Cocteau, have no idea, said of a Jeanette poem, quote, his obscenity is never obscene. That was from Patti Smith in her memoir, Just Kids, which talks about her and Robert Mapplethorpe's relationship.
His obscenity was never obscene. That is very eloquently put.
Yeah. And I included that in its entirety because, first of all, I think that was very eloquently said, very well said by Patti Smith.
Patty.
Shout out. You're very cool. I don't think I could have given that lovely of a take. And, I would have been here for months and months and months trying to come up with something that was that amazing and really just puts into words. I love that quote that she uses of his obscenity is never obscene. And I think that is a good way to summarize his work. Again, as I mentioned, there's a lot of works that I cannot show, but he also did other photographs, again, such as celebrity portraits that are absolutely fantastic. But I don't want to talk about that kind of stuff in this segment because it doesn't really relate to the AIDS crisis. It just kind of shows how awesome of a photographer he was.
Yeah.
In 1986, Mapplethorpe was diagnosed with AIDS. And I want to show you his self-portrait from 1988, which reflects on his own mortality with the disease. So here is his self-portrait from 1988. The first photo I showed you, his self-portrait, was 1980. This one, 1988. So 8 years between these two photos.
Okay.
This is a photo of Robert Mapplethorpe. He is holding a staff that has a skull on it, and he is wearing all black. He's staring directly at the camera. I think this is metal as hell.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Again, I keep saying that, but like,
I see it.
How baller. So I think this is just so amazing because he's kind of literally staring death right in the face. And an article that I read that was on Tate.org, I believe Tate, I think, is a magazine, and it talks about Robert Mapplethorpe's work and shows a lot of his portraits. And they mentioned that Robert Mapplethorpe, until the very end of his life, believed that he could beat AIDS. So he actually had a more, you could maybe call it naive, you could maybe call it delusional, you could maybe call it inspiring belief that he could beat this and that this would not be ended up taking his life. And I just think that's very interesting. And I think that really comes through in that portrait.
I was going to say, yeah, like when I first saw that image, I was like, I'm not entirely sure what the perspective is, like what the point of it is. Mm-hmm. But with that added context, it's like, yeah, like he's literally looking like staring death in the face, basically.
Right.
Like it's a very like, I'm not afraid of you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Like kind of vibe. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's fascinating. I think again that contrast against all of the images that, at least some of the images that I had seen as it related to the AIDS crisis, that showed a lot of people in hospitals, on the verge of death. They were very sad. They were very hopeless, essentially, which that is true. And that is a reality of the AIDS crisis. But I also like to highlight the other, just different ways that people process this and did this. And so I thought that self-portrait really stood out to me.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it really does.
So the other big thing that I want to talk about with Robert Mapplethorpe, what is this controversy? There is really no one photo in particular that I think that Mapplethorpe is remembered for. Of course, he has a self-portraits. And so if you've seen him before, or you've seen some of his portraits, obviously that's him. And so you associate that with him. But I don't think there's one like standout photograph of, oh, like that's him, that's his work, But I want to talk about his exhibition called The Perfect Moment. This exhibition opened in Philadelphia in 1988, only several months before Mapplethorpe passed away. And this was put together by the Philadelphia Institute of Contemporary Arts. And it had 3 different segments to it. It had pictures of flowers, the photos of the BDSM scene in New York and like nudes. And then it had a series where he did a lot of nudes of just African American men. So that was the 3rd segment to this show. And when it opened in Philadelphia, it did well. We had generally positive critical reception. Of course, there were a handful of very controversial nudes in this bunch of photos. And they listed 4 specifically that had garnered criticism. I'm not going to be showing any of them, obviously, especially because 2 of them were nude photographs of children. Now, they are not sexual in nature. I do want to preface that. They are not related to the BDSM subculture. They are not related to anything sexual, but those were there. And to be fair, I understand why people were upset with that, because I personally, I wouldn't want to see that of children either. So I do get people calling that one out. However, despite there being that controversy, the exhibit then made its way to Chicago, and it was generally positively received there as well. So it was supposed to move to Washington, D.C. in June of 1989, but this is where it hit the stopping point. The exhibition was actually canceled 2.5 weeks before it was supposed to open. And I want to read...
Was it, sorry.
Oh, sorry, you go ahead. Did you have a question?
No, well, I was just going to ask like what the reason was, but I feel like you're about to answer that.
Oh, don't worry. Yep.
Oh, boy. Okay.
I'm about to get there. So I want to read directly from the Wikipedia at this point, direct quote. 2.5 weeks before it was to open there, so the Perfect Moment exhibition. The Perfect Moment unexpectedly provoked national controversy, and the Institute of Contemporary Arts in Philadelphia became a key player in the congressional debate over what public funds should and should not fund. The issues of censorship and artistic freedom the show raised occupied the forefront of debates between conservatives and liberals during the Ronald Reagan era and in its aftermath. Members of the religious right, especially, criticized academics and artists for what they regarded as indecent, subversive, and blasphemous works. End quote.
Damn.
Next quote says, "The exhibition set off one of the fiercest episodes of America's culture wars and sparked a recurring debate about state-funded cultural production and the support of sexually explicit or sacrilegious art by public funds." So this was the first really documented sort of thing of culture wars. And you know how I mentioned earlier in Felix Gonzalez Torres's work that he had Jesse Helms, the name Helms, on that red stack of papers. That was one of the representatives that was calling out this for being indecent and blasphemous. And yeah. So Felix Gonzalez Torres said, "Oh, I heard you say that. I'm gonna put you on blast."
I'll put you on blast.
So
God damn.
Interesting connection. But I was like, no, not the word culture wars. No. Like, I mean, that's what it was.
And we never had to hear the word
like,
culture wars again.
Yeah, never.
Oh, lovely.
We never had to have the religious right criticize what should be publicly funded.
No.
Never happened again. Only happened to Robert Mapplethorpe.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to read that because I was like, oh, gosh. I thought it was interesting to wrap up on this note because just really highlights how we've circled back to where we were.
History repeats itself.
Yeah. And it does. And I knew that, and like going into this, I'm like, okay, yes, I know this is a simple fact, but I wanted to add that kind of like what I said earlier is that I can understand the critiquing of Mapplethorpe's photography of those two specific photographs that were of children. I do get that. And while they were not intended to be sexual, I would not be comfortable viewing those. And most importantly, children cannot consent to that. So, I wanted to add that caveat that I do agree on that note, but I can't help but wonder, like, let's say those two were removed and nobody ever even saw those and he, never even got those processed, or he got rid of them once they were processed. I can't help but wonder if these photographs, mainly those that featured the gay BDSM scenes and, gay relationships, weren't under more of a microscope due to the AIDS crisis going on at this time. And as we've seen before, the religious right will go after anything that they deem immoral. And I think that involves just queer existence, queer people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I certainly think having the kids in that exhibit made it easier.
Right, yeah.
I feel like they still would have found a way to, like, drive into it and get it delisted somehow.
Absolutely. And I feel like that is a lot of what the quote-unquote culture wars is about. They take a little tidbit where, like, the vast majority of people would probably agree, like, an example of Mapplethorpe's, the child one. Most people would agree, yeah, buddy, let's cut that. Let's not put that out there. Let's not.
I don't think it adds anything to the art, really. It's like you can.
Right. But then you go from 0 to 100 real quick, and it's like, this features, a gay couple in, bondage attire. This is sacrilegious. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Maplethorpe is standing in front of a pentagram. This is sacrilegious. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, throw out the whole thing.
Yeah. Like, don't look at it. I really don't. Like, I don't understand. It was on display, and they're like, well, what we should publicly fund. I mean, this was, yes, on display at these art institutes and things like that. But it was age restricted. They were blocked off. The photos of the flowers, everybody could walk around and see the photos of the flowers. But the photos that featured nudes were behind a separate segment where you had to be 18 and over to even enter that specific segment of the exhibit. So it's like, what are you really funding at that? Like, why are you that mad? What are you really funding at that point? Because people are probably paying to go see that. And even if they're not, like, you don't have to go see it. Yeah. Like, literally make a different choice.
It's actually really easy to just not look at things.
Right.
If I walk into a place and I see something I don't like, I just scream.
Then obviously you call for that place to be closed down.
I just start screaming in the middle of the room. And I call for anybody that has ever seen it also to be charged with criminal acts. And that's the only way.
Oh my god!
And it's how it should keep working.
Obviously, that's how society works. Sorry.
I'm so sorry, Lexi, for hurting your soul.
Oh, you're good. I just wanted to wrap up by going on a very, very mini rant. Again, I don't want us to be here for 5 hours because this will be an extended episode anyway. But I just feel very passionate about fighting against these movements that are like, oh, these things are immoral and all that, because it's a very slippery slope. I mean, you could call anything immoral. Yeah. And as we've seen before, especially the religious right, and I will be a hater to the religious right, they will go after anything that they deem immoral, and it's such a slippery slope. And like I mentioned earlier, I believe that just involves like just queer existence. And I thought it was very telling that, that AIDS was labeled as the gay disease, the gay cancer, and they were calling a gay man's works blasphemous for depicting same-sex sexuality or just sexuality in general. And that didn't get left. Like, that mentality was not left in 1989 and 1990.
Nope.
I can think of a more
very
recent...
much still here.
Yeah. I instantly thought of a more recent example of Mpox, and when word was coming out on that and the nasty things that people were saying as it related to Mpox and the, spreading of that disease. And it, as a little bit of more of a funny, lighter side of it, when Lil Nas X dropped his album Montero in 2021, just the absolute people losing their damn minds about it. And I think it's very interesting how the queer community and queer art especially will take symbols and say, well, you use the symbol to identify us. We're reclaiming that. You have said that you believe that queer people are going to burn in hell. And so what Lil Nas X does is says, okay, well, if you already think I'm going to burn in hell, then I'm just going to slide down to hell and I'm going to get freaky with Satan. Like, and then they act like, oh my gosh, it's so sacrilegious. And I'm like, you're the one that said
that's exactly what you said.
That queer people were going to burn in hell. So why are you that? Like, aren't you supposed to not like Satan? So why are you mad that the people
if I'm going to burn in hell, I'm going to be fucking hot while I'm doing it.
That's the whole point of hell.
Right.
Sorry, continue.
That's the whole point of burning. Hell. That's funny. Long story short, in my opinion, the vast majority of the time, it does not have to do with the actual content of the art, but the artist's identity that people are taking issue with. Again, I could go on for hours about this, but long story short, art is a powerful tool that moves people in ways that simple words or calls to action cannot. And I believe the art of the AIDS crisis is often purposely omitted from the history of the disease because it makes us feel a level of humanity and connection with those who have suffered during that time, those who've lost their lives, those whose lives have been forever changed due to this. And it makes us realize that we have more in common with those individuals that have been othered than certain groups of people would like us to think. And those certain groups of people, which I would call the wrong people, consider having empathy to be dangerous and something that will put a target on your own back. And I just think it is wild that so many years later, it's a broken record. We're dealing with some of the same stuff. So
yeah, it just is not a good way to live.
Exactly. But before I get into our funny little game, first of all, if you stuck with us this long, thank you so much. This was a little bit rambly by me, but as you can tell, I was very passionate about this. I wanted to talk about some of this information. So thank you, listeners, if you are still here. We have a fun little game for you. But before we get to fun little game, wanted to just ask for some closing thoughts on this topic from Camp and Gordon.
Well, I think, honestly, I think this is a really good episode. I think that it really helps encapsulate a lot of the pain and strife that was going on during the AIDS crisis, and frankly, still to this day, through art, right? Mm-hmm. And it's especially good for me as well, because although I am very much homosexual,
what?
I am living into what? Nah, that's crazy. But I'm, very much living in 2025. I am very white. I am very multiple other things. I am super fucking privileged in the grand scheme of things. And so to think about the fact that I'm living in this time when not even 2 generations ago, all this was happening, and to be able to see artifacts and art pieces about it, so viscerally able to give me the feelings of this is what life was like. This is what would happen to you if you had this disease in a world and a government that did not give a shit whether you lived or died. It's very, it's really eye-opening. It's really truthful. It's really, it's a lot of things. And I think it's a lot of things that are really important to remember.
Right. I think that's a good way to put it. It's a lot to take in, but it's worth chewing on and thinking about.
And at least personally for myself, a peek behind the curtain, we had a lot of issues trying to record this episode. To put lightly,
tech issues,
tummy issues, just entire recording stopping for just no reason. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. But
yeah, this is gonna be fun to edit.
Yes, it will be. I knew just how serious and how impactful I felt deep down that this episode would be. And again, as somebody who is not gay themselves, but of course supports the gay community, the queer community, every single person involved, and my 2 of my closest friends are queer, and so of course I'm going to support them, and I knew that this would be extremely important. And so once I knew that, oh hey, this is what this is going to be about, and yeah, we're going to talk about topics that they might be a little hard to listen or talk about, I was like, no, we really need to do this and give it as much respect and as much time as we can, where of course, yeah, some of the times we're going to be sitting there making butt jokes and oh hey, making random comments about this or this or this or this about
Abraham Lincoln. You would have loved Susie Poontang. That's classic. We're all just dudes in San Francisco. Classic.
We still joke around and we still have fun, of course, as friends and as people who respect not just each other, but what we all come from and who what we stand for. And so after knowing that, and after knowing that just how far we were going to go with this, I was like, no, we need to give this as much respect as we humanly can. And I hope we did that. Things are hard and life is still very, very difficult for a lot of people out there. Nobody would hold that against you or anybody around you, but you're not alone, and things have improved so much when you have to look back at just how hard it is now. And it's going to keep getting better. It might take years and years of progress, but every inch that has been made and that has been fought for, there are so many people that are still backing you up, and the spirits of all of those that have come before are cheering you on and hoping for your survival. And not just that, but we all care about it. And so we're all right here with you, and it's great. That's about all I can say about that.
It was beautifully said, Gordon.
So true.
I also wanted to add one little caveat before we get to the little game. That
before we get to little game.
Yeah. This episode, yes, the artists that we talked about, they were all gay men. But I do want to highlight the fact that during the AIDS crisis, it did not just affect gay men. I mentioned that a little bit, but I know that one of the big things of the AIDS crisis was that not many people were willing to treat patients with AIDS, but there were a lot of queer women that were, a lot of queer people of color that were, and I just wanted to shout those people out because Pride wouldn't exist without people of color in the movement. And again, lovely Marsha P. Johnson, who made such strides. And I just wanted to mention that because I don't feel like I could do a topic justice to talk about that, but I wanted to highlight it because I do very much believe that and know that this episode was mostly, gay men in the conversation, but the whole queer community and those who have intersectionality within the queer community are just as important, if not more important, in the conversation. So, disclaimer there, support and love. And now we're going to get goofy after I said, after I said that meaningful, hopefully meaningful thing.
Let's go.
So if you stuck with us this long, hold on tight. We're going to do something funny to lighten the mood. I have a game. This week, and it's not music, so hopefully we don't get removed for anything. My game this week is How Could You Forget Who Said This?
Oh.
And this is a game of, was this quote said by I'm going to say presumed, straight or a queer figure? This could be an author, an artist, a musician, or an actor. So basically what I'm going to have you guys do is I'm going to have you take turns. You guys can decide who's first.
Eric.
Cool. Okay. Camp's first.
Right. I'm okay with that. All right.
As the resident gay man, he goes first.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Am I homophobic? No.
Wait, no. Why would that be homophobic? No. You're letting him go first in the game. Because it'd just be
funny. It's just funny to say.
What? So, I am going to have you pick, don't do it yet, but I'm going to have you pick a number between 1 and 8, and I'm going to read you a quote. I'm not going to tell you who the quote is by. So,
okay,
you have to give me at least, do you think this person, and again, I say presume because I'm pretty sure I've got my facts right, and I think I know who's who on this list, but I'll say presume just because I don't want anybody to be mad, whether they are presumed straight or presumed queer. And then if you want to take an extra stab and guess who might have said it, I don't think you guys are going to get anywhere close on these of who actually said it. But if you want to take a stab at that, go ahead.
Louis Theroux.
Who? Who's that? I don't even know.
I'd have to look them up.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, they're obviously not on here.
Dang.
So, Camp, I'm going to have you pick a number between 1 and 8.
I'm going to pick 7.
7. I like to be a free spirit. Some don't like that, but that's just the way I am. Is this person presumed straight or presumed queer? And do you have a guess on who said it?
Okay, I don't have a solid guess on who said it, but I'm going to guess that it's a presumed straight person who's saying something that a presumed queer person would probably say.
Ooh.
So I'm basically saying that they're straight.
Okay. You are correct. This quote is attributed to Princess Diana.
Oh.
So,
Queen. Slay.
Our queen princess ally. Love her. So you did get that right. I'm going to write Camp.
All right.
And 1 point.
Got a point on the
Let's
board.
go.
All right.
Gurden, try to keep up.
Okay. Gurden, pick a number between 1 and 8. But not number 7.
7.
Really? Come on. Oh my goodness.
6. I thought you were going to give me more. I was just waiting.
6. Okay, 6. Your quote is, monsters are real and ghosts are real too. They live inside us and sometimes they win.
That just sounds like somebody who thinks that they're like hot shit. Like...
I mean, but are they presumed straight hot shit or presumed queer?
I'm just gonna guess it's
Deadmau
5. Like that's my guess. Like, like I think that
Deadmau.
Okay,
Yeah.
You're gonna. So you're locking in Deadmau 5, who I think is straight.
I'm assuming.
Sorry,
straight.
Mr. Mao.
I'm pretty sure he's straight.
Okay, so your guess is Deadmau 5. straight.
I love how much it's pissing off.
Okay, so
Aaron.
you are correct that it
Let's
is
go.
somebody who is presumed straight. It is not Dead Mouse 5.
Okay.
Okay. It is Stephen King.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah,
so
I was
that
so
was really
correct.
funny that you...
Like somebody up their own
That was
butt, yes.
really funny. Okay. Wow.
Oh my God.
Okay. I promise these are not all just straight quotes, even though you guys
It's
picked
7
two already
straight
that were.
people and one gay person.
My goodness. That would be really
Find
funny.
the odd one out.
I should have done that, but I didn't.
Or just 8 straight people. Just like, which one of these is going to be gay? No.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Camp. 1 through 8, but not 6 or 7.
4.
4. Okay. Your quote is, I could never pretend something I didn't feel. I could never make love if I didn't love. And if I loved, I could no more hide the fact that than change the color of my eyes.
Yeah, the eyes. That's what they
Yeah,
say.
eyes. That is what we're talking about. Yes.
So don't guess Dead Mouse 5, because it's obviously not Dead Mouse 5.
No. Okay, I don't know who said it, but I'm going to say it was a presumed queer person.
Okay, so question mark, not Dead Mouse 5.
Not Dead Mouse 5.
And presumed queer. You are actually wrong. It was a quote from Marilyn Monroe, who is presumed to be straight.
Oh my God, my gaydar's broken.
No.
That was a trick one, though. I was a tricky person with that
That's
one.
the whole point.
That actually- yeah.
Yes.
Tricky with
Because that
it.
did kind of sound, yeah.
Right.
Get tricky with it. Oh my God.
Okay.
Get tricky with it.
Gurdon. You've
All
got
right.
1,
7.
2, 3. Seriously? No. You got 1, 2, 3, 5, or 8.
I'll go 5 so we can just say don't choose
Okay.
like 4
All right.
through 8.
So it's easier to.
Yes.
Okay. Your quote is, a simple happiness is better than a complex disillusion.
Can you repeat the quote, please?
In the end, not Linkin Park.
I was trying to think.
No.
I was literally, as
It's
soon as I
not
heard in the
Linkin
end, I was
Park.
like, it doesn't even matter.
Okay, sorry. I'll redo that. In the end, a simple happiness is better than a complex disillusion. Comma.
In the end,
A simple happiness is better than a
Comma.
complex disillusion.
I'm gonna say because we've only had straights, right? Am I crazy? We've
Right.
only had straights so far.
Yeah, we
But
have only had
you don't
straights
know
so
my
far.
straight to
Unless-
queer ratio.
Unless Lexi's trying to pull the actual joke of, oh, I should have only put straights on here and then made us all guess about their sexuality. I'm gonna say queer, and I'm going to say I'm gonna literally look up gay person on Google real quick. And
You're just gonna look up gay person?
sorry, famous gay person.
Whatever the first result is.
Eleanor Roosevelt. Wait, why? That's not gay at all. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Why is
What?
Eleanor Roosevelt out of here? That's the funniest thing I've
Okay,
ever
I'm
said
gonna
in my
take that as a
life.
final answer. You are wrong. It is not Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh.
But you are correct. It was said by a queer person. This
Oh
is
my
a quote
God, there you go.
from Janelle Monáe. She is a
Oh.
musician.
Oh, wait, Janelle Monáe's queer?
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I think she uses she, they pronouns. I think she's non-binary.
Ah,
Or they're
okay.
non-binary. Question
Oh my
mark?
god.
True. Okay.
Oh my good
But-
lord, I'm still laughing at the fact that I looked up famous gay person and got Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
my God.
Oh, that is so
I
amazing.
shouldn't give you a point for that because you just
Yes, you
Googled gay
should.
person.
Yes,
And it wasn't even somebody. I'm like, wait, what?
This person's not gay
Oh
at
my
all.
gosh.
That's so funny.
Teddy Roosevelt, first lavender marriage.
The first.
oh my
There was
gosh.
very many lavender marriages.
Oh my
like-
goodness.
Oh.
But also, that's
oh, I'm
kind of
crying. Oh my.
that's
gosh.
kind of funny. I now we might need to look into that in the future. But anyway,
How could you forget Eleanor Roosevelt was queer?
What was Eleanor hiding?
okay. Camp. We got 1, 2, 3, or 8.
I'm trying to think which would be funnier. Let's do 3.
3.
3 for now.
Okay. Your quote is, I am a necessary part of an important search to which there is no end.
Okay. So that sounds
You
kind of
need it again?
narcissistic. But like But like that could be either narcissism knows no sexuality.
True.
That's
true.
accurate.
King.
Could you read the quote just like one more time?
I am a necessary part of an important search to which there is no end.
Huh. See, I'm like trying to think of like who talks about themselves like that.
Yeah.
Well, and you have no other context either. So like that makes it even more difficult.
Yeah. God, yeah, that's right. It just adds another level. You know what? That sounds pretty theatrical, and gay people are pretty theatrical. I'm going to say it's said by a presumed straight person. No, presumed queer person. Sorry. Cross my wires a little bit.
Do you want to guess a person with your presumed straight or presumed queer? No.
I'm not saying
Dead Mouse 5. I don't think they're queer.
I will say Dead Mouse. I won't say Dead Mouse 5.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. I'm locking that in.
Okay, Dead Mouse. Dead Mouse. Presumed queer. Is that your final answer?
Yes, which is oxymoronic, but
this
I don't
is
care.
gay, Dead Mouse.
Yes. Okay. So sorry, it's not Dead Mouse, but it is somebody queer. It is Keith Haring that said that.
Wow.
Hey,
Nice.
I just learned about that person.
So
True.
again, it's one of those things where like, you know, him saying that might not have come off as like stroke your own ego as, you know, like depending on what context he was saying that. Because,
Yeah, now that I know who said it, it makes a lot of more sense, and now I feel bad.
Now I feel bad.
No, don't feel bad. This is what's supposed to be funny about it is like you don't know any of the context.
Yeah.
So, okay, Gurdon,
All
you
right.
got 1, 2, and 8. Don't say 7.
7.
Seven.
Sorry.
Don't
Oh
pick
my
7.
gosh.
All of us. 7. Okay. I'll go 8.
8. Okay. Your quote is. This is a longer one, so I will repeat it again after I read it, so you can.
Bros repeating themselves.
Can
so
I go?
Sorry. Yes, I'm so sorry.
You're done. Okay, the quote is, fright is one of the worst things in the world. I've been plenty frightened at times. Like when I was in an automobile accident, a head-on collision. I remember I was so frightened my hands wouldn't work. A terrible feeling, like a disease you can't control. I don't like things I can't control. I'll read it again while you think. Fright is one of the worst things in the world. I've been plenty frightened at times. Like when I was in an automobile accident, a head-on collision. I remember I was so frightened my hands wouldn't work. A terrible feeling, like a disease you can't control. I don't like things I can't control.
Huh, okay. So, somebody that got into a car wreck and they were afraid of their hands not working. And
Don't say like Pinocchio or something.
Pinocchio's not a real person, Lexi, okay?
I know.
Nice try. They're not going to trick me that easily.
Trolled.
Yeah. I'm going to say, because who gets in car wrecks?
What? Are you going to Google famous people in car wrecks?
People in cars?
I already
don't-
did that, Lexi. The first answer was Princess Diana, and I don't think
Yeah.
that counts, okay?
You never know. You never
We
know.
already had a quote from Princess Diana earlier, but maybe there's multiple.
True, but I don't think Princess Diana
Okay,
survived
I won't be
their
cruel.
car wreck.
Yeah, she passed away from that. I don't want to make like light of this. Yeah, she passed away from that, so no, it is not her that
That's
said
why
that.
I said I don't think it's Princess
Just,
Diana.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah, I would assume not.
but I figured that would come up when you looked that up.
I also don't want to say, because this sounds, I guess it straight up might be homophobic, of like, do gay people get in more car wrecks?
I mean, I don't know if there's really even any statistics on that.
would be an interesting thing to study.
I wouldn't think so.
Hold on. I'm going to do the quickest Google search.
I honestly wouldn't think so because, again, the percentage of people who identify as like queer is going to be lower than the general population anyway. So,
Well, true. But like, if you look at it like per capita, right? Like, I don't know what the car, whatever. That's not important. Okay.
I'm going to say gay.
okay.
Because I'm not getting much whenever I search up do gay men get in or do gay people get in more car wrecks. But
Oh my goodness.
somebody dead asked their insurance, do gay men pay more for auto insurance? And they just basically said men pay more for auto insurance, and just made me think that maybe a person that was actually very worried about their well-being and their hands and stuff like that would be queer. So, and my
Okay.
answer for famous gay person is again Eleanor Roosevelt.
Well, it was not Eleanor Roosevelt, but yes, the person who said this was queer.
I am the best at this game.
This is a quote from Rock Hudson, who we mentioned on the AIDS timeline of being the first public figure to come out with his diagnosis which is kind of even more awful that he said in this quote that like this car accident was awful and he compared it to a disease you can't control.
Yeah.
I don't know if he said that after his diagnosis, but if he said that before, whoa, that's wild. That's wild.
That's crazy,
so,
yo.
Rest in peace, Rock Hudson. But yes, you're right, Gordon. That was somebody who was.
I'm pretty awesome.
Queer. So
damn, I gotta up my game.
You can win now.
I was gonna say you're only down. No, he's only down one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can come back from this, maybe possibly.
Okay.
So what's left? So it's one and two left, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna steal number one from Gordon. I'm gonna ask what number one is.
All right.
I'm gonna knock him off his mojo.
Number one. I want to lead the Victorian life, surrounded by exquisite clutter.
This is hard. Yeah. This is really hard.
I'm sorry.
Live a Victorian life surrounded by... I mean, I will say...
Do you want me to read it again?
Is this like the same time period, all of them? Like, are these all like... No? Oh, gosh,
some of them are, but no, there are some random ones in there.
Yeah, just read it one more time.
I want to lead the Victorian life, surrounded by exquisite clutter.
Or I got nothing for you.
So it's not Dead Mouse.
It's Dead Mouse 5. Yeah.
It's not Dead Mouse. It's probably not Eleanor Roosevelt. I don't think.
No, I will spoiler. It's not Eleanor Roosevelt either.
This is glorp shit.
I'm gonna say presumably straight, and I'm gonna say it's Madonna because of that one MTV Awards performance where she was dressed up like.
What?
That one fucking like you know like Madonna back in 1990 when she did the Vogue performance and she was dressed up as like Marie.
Yes.
Marie Antoinette or whatever.
Yeah. Sorry. For a second, I was like, "What? Are you smoking?" Yes. Yeah. I know. Okay. So your guess is Madonna, presumed straight.
Yeah, I think Madonna's straight. I don't even know.
Is Madonna
this hurts.
straight?
It was not Madonna, and it was not presumed straight. It was Freddie Mercury.
Oh no!
Dang it!
Whoops!
I tried to pick the most like Freddie Mercury sounding quote. I will say though, some of them I could not pick though because I'm like, oh, that is just dead obvious, like dead obvious. Like there was one about like bicycles or something. I'm like, oh no, and I cannot do that one.
I have big teeth and I like bicycles. Who am I?
Oh my goodness!
I want to ride my bicycle.
By the way,
oh my goodness!
I want to ride my
bike. By the way, just so we can have this for posterity's sake, I looked up is Madonna straight, and this is the answer. According to Microsoft's Bing, the best search engine.
Oh goodness!
Yep.
Okay. I mean, she can be a gay icon and still be like straight and or like ambiguous.
This is why I still use Microsoft Bing because it's so stupid.
I just love. Okay, so not only is it wrong, but it's just the way that like the question is Madonna straight, and then in bold text, gay. Like,
okay, so I also like binged this, and I said Madonna sexuality, and it says in the little stupid summary. Madonna is an American singer and actress who is recognized as a gay icon. She has been open about her sexuality in music and interviews for decades and often seen as an advocate for LGBTQ community. Although she has never explicitly said, I am bisexual or I like women or I am gay, she has openly dated both men and women over the years, and her sexuality is still seen as fluid.
All right, so that would fall under queer.
Right. Yeah. Presumed queer because
presumed Madonna straight. Gay.
Gay.
That's great.
Wild.
I am putting that in the visuals. That is such a great screenshot.
Oh my goodness.
I love how bad it just sometimes if you just ask it the questions, it'll either be like, actually, yes, and like be very helpful of like if you need images or anything like that. But other times it's just the most off that it could humanly be.
Oh my goodness.
Good Lord. All right.
Okay,
well,
Gordon, are you ready for your last normal one? Nope.
What do you mean?
No, there's a final round. You got to do the last quote and the final round. Anybody's game still. Anybody's game.
game.
The final boss. The final boss is worth 5 points.
What do you mean final boss?
Oh,
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but you got to do number 2 first, because this is just going to be
hold up.
Okay, you still win the base.
But I was about to say,
final boss, though,
the final boss is worth 5 points. And basically, if you literally got every single one wrong and the other person got every single one right, and you got it right and the other person didn't, you'd win.
Yeah. I make the rules.
So what you're saying is there's a chance.
It's absolutely a chance where you can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
I make the rules.
Oh, give it to me.
Okay, so this is number 2. This does not count for the final. This is not the final question.
This is not the
This is just number 2. It takes many good deeds to build a reputation, and only one bad one to lose it.
Is this Adam Sandler?
I'm not telling you until you lock in your guess.
I'm locking in straight Adam Sandler because he was in the film Mr. Deeds 2002.
You think this is a quote from Mr. Deeds?
Piece of knowledge.
This is not a quote from Mr. Deeds.
Hey, I did say it could be author, artist, musician, or actor. So, okay, we're going Adam Sandler straight. Quote from Mr. Deeds?
I guess, yeah.
Okay. You are correct. It is somebody straight. Or presumed straight. It is not Adam Sandler from Mr. Deeds.
No.
It is Benjamin Franklin.
Gurdon, how is your gaydar this good? I'm the gay one. I'm supposed to have it.
The thing about it is like...
Gurdon is fruity. He still has fruit guard.
It's so funny because I'm like, that sounds like something a straight person would say because they're talking about, oh, my good deeds. Like trying to be like, my good deeds in this life.
Honestly, though, you thinking it was Mr. Deeds is pretty hilarious.
Yes.
Like, I did not make that connection. When you're like, Adam Sandler, and I'm like, okay. And you're like, Mr. Deeds, I'm like, whoa.
You're talking about... Okay, I'm going to say it like this. If somebody talks about their good deeds, they died in the 1800s, at least. Like, I've never heard somebody in, like, the modern day say anything about, oh, my good deeds. Like, get a job.
True.
All right.
Get a job, Longfellow Deeds.
Yeah. Adam Sandler.
Good deeds don't pay the rent.
Now here comes the actual... All the other points didn't matter. It was all for nothing according to
they only matter if I win.
So I'm gonna read this quote twice, and then you have to buzz in using a noise, like we did with the song. Yeah, you can say buzz if you want, whatever. So I will read the quote twice.
Can I buzz in for Eric?
Then no, you can't. You can't just buzz in for camp.
What do you mean?
Because that would really throw him off.
You can't go camp.
That would be really funny, but
oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna read it twice, and if you
we have to wait until the second time.
You have to wait till the second time.
Okay.
But by the time you buzz in, you have to tell me your guess. You can't sit and go, I don't know. You have to tell me who you think it is and presumed queer or straight. Okay.
All right.
You can't wait, or I'll say and I'll go to the next person.
But then what if they wait?
Well, then you'll if you buzz in and you go goes to the next person. If they're like then it goes back to you. We're just gonna bounce back.
The second person just had unlimited time, and
no, you don't have unlimited time. You have to buzz in and you have to say Eleanor Roosevelt, gay. That's the or queer. Okay. But don't say that one, because that's not it.
The answer, Camp. She gave it.
No, I did not. It's not Eleanor Roosevelt. Okay.
The answer is not Eleanor Roosevelt. Okay, I'll take my prize now.
Dang.
Okay, I'm going to read the quote. Are we ready?
Okay, yes. All right.
Okay, I'm going to read it twice. You can tell a lot about a fellow's character by his way of eating jelly beans. One more time. You can tell a lot about a fellow's character by his way of eating jelly beans.
Buzz.
Gurdon.
Andy Warhol, whatever his sexuality is.
Are you going to say presume straight or
Hold on, I
queer?
gotta look up sexuality of Andy Warhol.
Nope, you waited.
Andy Warhol was a gay man. No, Andy Warhol was gay.
Okay, too bad. You had to look it up, so you didn't say queer.
Too bad. Okay. Well, just because I want to steal...
Oh, you said, All right, Andy Warhol gay. Andy Warhol queer.
Andy Warhol gay. Okay. Camp, I'm gonna let you take a guess though, because you guys both just
Suck. Yes.
were like, okay.
To be honest, I was also going to say Andy Warhol gay specifically to steal.
Were you oh my gosh. Okay.
We can't lose.
Well,
We can't lose.
you both can't win. You both can't win. So,
Okay,
Camp,
so
what
Camp
is
says
your?
Andy Warhol straight. That's what his answer is.
No. Are you serious? Is that going to be y'all's answer?
I'm not going
Wendy
to. No. I'm not going to do Wendy Warhol.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Randy Newman straight. There you go, Cam.
I could say Randy. You know what? Actually, that might be a thing that Randy Newman would say.
Okay.
about a guy
Randy Newman straight?
jelly beans.
You know what? Screw it. Randy Newman straight. That's my vote. Lock in.
Okay, we have Gurdon with Andy Warhol, queer. We have Camp with Randy Newman, straight.
Please make this into a short.
It was neither Andy Warhol nor Randy Newman. However, Camp was correct. It was somebody that was straight that said this.
Woo! Let's go.
The person who said this
Bill Clinton.
was Ronald Reagan.
I was close with Bill Clinton.
So Camp
Ronald
wins
Reagan.
because he said,
Wait, hold
"Who's
on.
straight?"
Don't they think that Ronald Reagan was a closeted? No, that was Eisenhower. My bad. They thought Eisenhower was a closeted.
That
gay
was
man. My bad.
JFK.
No,
I think you're
no.
thinking
Have you seen
of.
how Eisenhower sitting down?
Oh, I do know. I have
He's
seen that image.
gay as hell.
It's so great.
Okay, put up on screen right now, Camp.
Okay, we don't have
No,
time.
no, no,
we
no,
don't
Lexi,
have
look at
time
this
to
gay
dive
man.
into. Okay, he's just happy to be
I know
home.
we don't have time.
He's happy he
I know we
didn't
don't
die
have
in the
time,
war.
but I just need to. I remember seeing that tweeted image, and the caption was, "Not the Axis retreating; it's giving surrender."
Oh.
Oh my god!
And speaking of surrender, I surrender my time here for the remaining time. Shout out to the patrons.
Yay.
Thank you for sticking with us this long. This was a long one, but we hope you enjoyed it. And
Yes, we hope you found it as interesting as it was to record.
This was very
this has been very
yes.
interesting.
We love hearing your recommendations. I keep a list, so keep them coming. I wrote down the ones from the last episode. I have a couple more I need to add, but thank you so much for your recommendations. I promise we do look at them. And thank you so much for your guys' support. And happy Pride. Don't be a homophobe. Go look at some gay art.
They call it GART in some places, if you didn't know.
So true. That's also what I call Garfield cart.
Gartfield.
Garfield Gart.
Just can't say
Is Garfield gay?
Gartfield.
It's 1 a.m. Leave me alone.